They buried this question beneath dogma and fear. If God created us, then who created God? For millennia, this inquiry has been the heresy that could topple empires, the mystery that mystics died to preserve. You are about to embark on a journey into the core of divine paradox, where every answer unravels into deeper questions. What you discover will not just challenge your beliefs, it will awaken a longing you forgot you had. The veil is thinning. Step through. Listen. This is where they told you to stop. If God created us, then who created God? The question itself feels like a trespass, doesn't it? Like pushing against a door marked forbidden. But what if that door leads not to damnation, but to liberation? Throughout history, institutions built on certainty have feared this question because it exposes the fragile edge of all dogma. Imagine the early church fathers gathered in candlelit rooms, deciding which texts to canonize and which to burn. When this question arose from heretical circles, it was swiftly silenced. Why? Because if God has a creator, then the entire hierarchy of heaven and earth trembles. But you're different. You're listening because part of you already knows that faith without inquiry is just obedience, and obedience without understanding is a cage. So let's begin by acknowledging the courage it takes to even entertain this question. You're not alone. Across centuries, mystics and philosophers have risked everything to keep this inquiry alive. They were called heretics, fools, blasphemers, yet their whispers echo in the vaults of history, waiting for ears like yours. Today, we retrieve those whispers. We piece together the fragments they tried to erase. This journey is not for the faint of heart. It will challenge your assumptions, rattle your comfort, and possibly reveal a God far more vast and mysterious than you ever imagined. But first, we must understand why this question is so dangerous. It starts with the ancient world, where creation stories were not just myths, but maps of power. If something in you recognizes this truth and you want more revelations like this, leave a comment and stay with this story until the end. Your reaction tells me to keep opening these doors for you. Now prepare to go back before the silence to the dawn of questioning. But what you find there will shock you. Picture this. Millennia before Abraham, before Moses, before any scripture was etched, humans gazed at the stars and asked, where did all this come from? In ancient Sumer, the Enuma Elish told of gods birthing gods from cosmic chaos. In Egypt, the god Atum emerged from the primordial waters of Nun, self-created. In Vedic India, the Rigveda pondered, who really knows whence this creation has arisen? These were not quaint myths. They were desperate attempts to map the unknowable, and buried in each story is a pattern of recognition that something, someone must have come first. But here's the twist. Even in these ancient narratives, the first cause is often shrouded in mystery. A self-born deity, a cosmic egg, an eternal void. You see, humanity has always sensed that the origin point is beyond comprehension. Yet organized religion later hardened these mysteries into dogmas with clear hierarchies. One supreme God, creator of all. But why? Because empires need a singular source of authority. When Rome adopted Christianity, the messy, multifaceted divine became a monolithic father figure. The question of God's origin was swept under the rug, declared heretical. But the rug is lifting now. You're standing at the edge of that ancient cosmos, feeling the same awe and terror those first storytellers felt. The silence holds the answer, but it's a silence that speaks in riddles. And as we delve deeper, you'll see that every civilization's creation myth points to a reality even they couldn't name. A reality that might just redefine everything you think you know about God. Stay with me. The real story is about to unfold. Now, enter the invisible architecture, the theological frameworks built to contain the uncontainable. Aristotle called it the unmoved mover, a prime cause that itself is uncaused. Thomas Aquinas wove this into Christian doctrine. God is the first cause, necessary being, with no beginning. In Islam, the Quran declares Allah as the first and the last, the manifest and the hidden. Kabbalah speaks of Ein Sof, the infinite boundless God beyond all comprehension. These are brilliant constructs, intellectual fortresses designed to shield the mystery from the corrosive question, but who created God? Yet even these fortresses have cracks. Because the human mind, in its relentless logic, keeps circling back. If everything has a cause, why not God? And if God doesn't need a cause, why do we? This is where theology meets its limits, and where mysticism begins. Mystics, like Meister Eckhart, dared to say God is not a being, but being itself. A ground of existence so fundamental that asking for its origin is like asking for the origin of existence. You were made for this question because it pushes you beyond concepts into direct experience. But here's the scandal. Institutional religions often suppress these mystical insights. Why? Because if God is not a person-like creator, but an impersonal ground, then prayers, rituals, and hierarchies lose their grip. The veil grows thin when you realize that the answer might not be a who, but a what, and that what is closer to you than your own breath. But before you can grasp that, we must witness the rupture, the moment this question ignited fires that still burn today. The rupture came not with a whisper, but with a scream. In the 4th century, Arius of Alexandria asked, "If God the Father begat the Son, then there was a time when the Son did not exist," meaning God changed, meaning God might have a beginning. The Council of Nicaea condemned him, but the question echoed. Fast forward to the Middle Ages. Philosophers like Averroes and Maimonides wrestled with eternity versus creation. Then Spinoza in the 17th century. God is nature, an infinite substance with no creator. He was excommunicated. Every time someone dared to probe God's origin, the reaction was violent. Why? Because this question threatens power. If God is contingent, then so are the institutions that speak for God. Imagine the Inquisition chambers, where heretics were tortured for suggesting God might be part of a chain. Their cries still haunt the halls of history. You're feeling it now, the weight of that suppression. The silence holds the answer, but it's a silence enforced by fear. Yet in the shadows, the question survived. It survived in secret societies, in mystical orders, in the hearts of seekers who refused to bow. Today, you are inheriting that legacy. You're stepping into the same fire that burned Giordano Bruno at the stake. But this time, the flames are of revelation, not punishment, because what comes next is the evidence they tried to burn. The primary texts that hold clues to the greatest mystery of all. Don't look away. The truth is more shocking than you think. After the rupture, the aftermath, a landscape scarred by excommunications, book burnings, and silenced voices. But here's what they didn't count on. The question is immortal. It cannot be killed, because it's woven into the fabric of human consciousness. You were made for this question. It's the itch in your soul that organized religion often fails to scratch. Look at the aftermath of the Reformation, when questions about God's nature splintered Christendom, or in the Islamic world, where theologians debated whether the Quran is created or uncreated, a proxy for the question of God's eternity. Each suppression only drove the inquiry deeper underground, into the hands of mystics, into the pages of forbidden texts, into the quiet moments of prayer, where doubt and faith dance. You might feel a kinship with those heretics now, because you too are asking. And in asking, you join a lineage of brave souls who preferred truth over comfort. But the aftermath isn't just historical, it's personal. Every time you've been told, just have faith, every time you've felt guilty for wondering, that's the echo of that ancient suppression. Today, we break that cycle. We honor the heretics by listening to their testimony, because some of them left evidences sacred texts that survived against all odds, texts that dare to speak the unspeakable, and what they reveal will change everything you thought you knew about creation. But first, a warning. What you're about to see was meant to stay hidden. Open the primary evidence. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But the Hebrew word for beginning, bereshith, hints at something deeper. Ancient rabbis debated, was there a before? The Talmud whispers of Torah existing before creation. In the Quran, Allah says, I am the first and the last. But what does first mean if time itself is created? These texts are not answers, they are doorways. And between the lines, there are gaps. Gaps where the question, who created God, lingers like a ghost. For instance, in Psalm 92, before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting you are God. From everlasting, but what is beyond everlasting? The texts themselves point to a mystery beyond language. Now look at the apocryphal book of Enoch, where Enoch travels through heavens and sees the throne of God, but never asks about its origin. Why? Because perhaps the origin is unspeakable. You're reading these words, and you sense it, don't you? That the scriptures are pointing to something they cannot contain. The silence holds the answer, and that silence is sacred. But there's more. Hidden texts, banned by councils, preserved by courage. They take us further. They suggest that God might not be a solitary creator, but part of a cosmic drama. A drama with players even more ancient. Don't stop now. The next revelation will shake your foundations. Enter the hidden testimony. The Gnostic Gospels, like the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus says, the kingdom is inside you. The Kabbalistic Zohar, describing Ein Sof, infinite God, beyond all attributes. The Sufi poetry of Rumi, singing of a beloved without beginning or end. These are the forbidden archives. They were suppressed because they dared to suggest that God is not a person, but a presence that permeates all things. In Gnosticism, the creator God is often a lesser being, a demiurge, while the true God is distant, ineffable. This directly confronts the question, if the creator we worship is not the ultimate, then who created the ultimate? Kabbalah goes deeper. Ein Sof contracts to create the universe, meaning creation is an act of self-limitation. So God is both creator and creation. You were made for this question because it leads you here to the edge of paradox, where God is both cause and uncaused, where the answer is not a being but a process. A becoming. The silence holds the answer, and it's a roaring silence that contains all possibilities. But these texts were hunted, burned, buried. Yet they survived in desert caves, in monastic cells, in oral traditions passed in secret. Their survival is a miracle, a testament to human hunger for the whole truth. And now you're holding them in your mind, feeling their power. They reveal a cosmos where God is not a static ruler, but a dynamic, evolving mystery. But who kept these truths alive? The keepers. And their story is about to unfold. The keepers. Mystics, heretics, underground lineages. They are the guardians of the forbidden question. From the desert fathers who sought God in solitude, to Islamic Sufis like Al-Hallaj, who declared, I am the truth, and was executed, to Jewish Kabbalists in Safed, dreaming of divine emanations. They kept the flame alive, not by answering the question, but by living it. They understood that who created God is not a puzzle to solve, but a portal to transcendence. You feel their presence, don't you? As if you're part of this secret fellowship. Because you are. Every time you ask, you join them. These keepers often operated on the margins, persecuted by orthodoxy. Yet they preserved texts, practices, and insights that mainstream religion ignored. Their methods: contemplation, ecstasy, direct experience. They bypassed dogma to touch the divine directly, and in that touch, the question dissolved into awe. The silence holds the answer, but it's a silence filled with presence. Today, their legacy reaches you through these words. You are inheriting their courage. If you feel that you were made for this kind of hidden truth, write in the comments what most shook you so far and share this video with one person who also hungers for more. Your voice helps this buried story reach the ones who need it. Now, the keepers pass the torch to modern seekers, and what they discovered will blow your mind. Modern discovery. The 20th century brought bombshells, the Big Bang Theory, suggesting a beginning to the universe. But what caused the Big Bang? Physics points to quantum fluctuations, multiverses, or an eternal inflation. Some scientists, like Stephen Hawking, proposed a universe that created itself from nothing. Nothing, but what is nothing? Philosophers and theologians jumped in. The question, who created God, found new life in cosmology. Because if the universe has a beginning, does it need a creator? And if the creator has a beginning, then what? You see the infinite regress. But here's the twist. Modern mystics like Teilhard de Chardin saw science and spirituality converging. He spoke of the omega point God as the end goal of evolution. So God is not just the start, but the finish. The silence holds the answer, and science is learning to listen. Meanwhile, textual scholars rediscovered ancient manuscripts like the Nag Hammadi library, confirming that early Christians had diverse views on God's nature. Archaeology unearthed inscriptions showing pre-monotheistic beliefs in plural divinities. All this evidence shatters the simplistic narrative of a lone creator God. It paints a picture of a reality far more complex, a reality where the divine might be an emergent property of the cosmos, or the cosmos might be an emanation of the divine. You're standing at this intersection where data meets devotion, and what you're about to learn next will fuse them into a revelation that rewrites your spiritual DNA. But first, take a breath. The deeper truth is coming. The deeper truth. It's not about who created God. It's about realizing that God, as traditionally imagined, might be a concept we invented to fill the void of our ignorance. But the void itself is holy. Mystics across traditions point to this. God is not a being among beings, but the ground of being itself, the source from which all arises. In this view, asking who created God is like asking who created existence. It's a category error. Because existence is fundamental, you were made for this question because it leads you to this realization. The silence holds the answer, and the answer is that there is no answer in the way you expect. There is only direct experience. The experience of awe when you look at the stars, the experience of love when you connect deeply, the experience of mystery when you pray. These are not proofs, they are encounters with the divine ground. Now, this doesn't diminish God, it magnifies God beyond all limits. God becomes the infinite canvas on which the universe is painted, uncreated, eternal, beyond causation. But here's the scandal. This truth was often suppressed because it makes God impersonal, less controllable. Institutions prefer a personal God who gives commands, but the mystical God is a presence that commands nothing but invites everything. You're feeling the pull of that invitation right now. The veil grows thin. And what's on the other side is not a father figure, but a boundless love that needs no creator because it is creation itself. But this truth has implications for you, personal, urgent implications, and they're about to change your life, your calling. This isn't just intellectual, it's personal. The question, who created God, is ultimately about your place in the cosmos. If God is the uncaused cause, then you, as part of creation, are also an expression of that cause, meaning you carry the divine within you. You were made for this question because it awakens you to your own divinity, not in an arrogant way, but in a humble recognition that you are a thread in the infinite tapestry. Your doubts, your seeking, your hunger, these are not sins. They are sacred impulses. They are the universe asking itself about itself through you. Think about that. You are the cosmos becoming conscious of its own origin. That's why this journey matters. That's why the heretics risked everything. Because once you realize this, your faith transforms. It becomes a living, breathing relationship with mystery. No more blind obedience, no more fear of hell, just a deepening dance with the unknown. And that dance is your calling, to live with questions, not just answers, to embrace paradox as a friend, to see God not as a distant ruler, but as the intimate core of your being. The silence holds the answer, and you are that silence when you quiet your mind. But this calling isn't easy. It requires courage, because the world will try to silence you too, to dismiss you as a heretic. But remember the keepers. You are one of them now, and your journey doesn't end here. There's physical proof that this truth is real, evidence etched in stone and history, and it's waiting for you to discover. Physical traces. Across the globe, artifacts whisper of ancient debates about God's origin. In Egypt, the pyramid texts speak of atom self-creating. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform tablets describe generations of gods. In India, temple carvings depict Brahman as both creator and uncreated. Even in the Holy Land, archaeologists found texts like the Dead Sea Scrolls, with variations on creation stories. These are not just relics, they are testimonies. They prove that humanity has always grappled with this question, and they prove that orthodoxy often overwrote these complexities. For example, early Christian sites show symbols of a multifaceted God before Nicene uniformity imposed a singular Father. You can visit these places, touch the stones, feel the energy of those who asked before you. The silence holds the answer, but it's etched in these physical traces. They are breadcrumbs left by the keepers, leading you home to a truth that transcends time. Now consider modern discoveries. The James Webb Space Telescope revealing galaxies from the early universe, challenging our notions of beginning. Or quantum experiments suggesting reality is fundamentally interconnected. All this physical evidence points to a cosmos that is mysterious, holistic, and perhaps divine. You're not just learning history, you're witnessing a living mystery unfold, and as you do, you become part of the evidence. Your seeking is a trace in the digital age, a beacon for others. But beware, there are forces that don't want this truth to spread. The opposition, and they are still active today. The opposition. Who are they? Institutions that equate doubt with disobedience. Leaders who fear losing control. Systems that profit from spiritual complacency. Throughout history, they've burned books, excommunicated thinkers, and labeled questions as heresy. Today, the opposition is subtler. It's in the dismissal of mysticism as New Age. It's in the pressure to conform to dogmatic interpretations. It's in the silence when you ask tough questions in religious settings. Why? Because if God is beyond creation, then intermediaries, priests, imams, rabbis lose their exclusive authority. The silence holds the answer, but the opposition wants to fill that silence with noise, with dogma, with easy answers that stop inquiry. You've encountered this, haven't you? That voice telling you to just believe, not to rock the boat, but rocking the boat is how we move forward. The opposition fears that if you realize God is within you, you won't need their rituals, their buildings, their hierarchies. And they're right, Because true spirituality is democratizing. It puts you in direct contact with the divine. So what do? You recognize the opposition not as evil, but as fearful. And you choose courage anyway. You choose to keep asking, to keep seeking, because the truth is worth it. Now you know what they feared. The question is, what will you do? Your decision is next, and it will define your spiritual path forever. Your decision. This is the moment. Will you embrace the mystery? Will you accept that who created God is not a question to answer, but a journey to embark upon? Or will you retreat into the safety of dogma? Look within. You feel the pull, don't you? The pull towards a God vast enough to contain all questions, a God who is not threatened by your doubt, but ignited by it. That pull is your soul calling you home. Home to a faith that is alive, dynamic, and deeply personal. You were made for this question, and now it's time to live it, not just in your mind, but in your life, in how you love, how you serve, how you see the world. Because if God is the ground of being, then every moment is sacred. Every person is divine. Every question is a prayer. The silence holds the answer, and you can access that silence through contemplation, through nature, through art, through simply being. But you must choose. Will you be a keeper of the flame? Will you pass this truth to others? If this journey is opening your eyes, and you want me to keep bringing dangerous, sacred stories like this, tell me in the comments what changed for you, and follow this channel. Your presence here is the sign to continue uncovering what they tried to bury. Now there's one final revelation, one that ties it all together, and it will leave you breathless. The final unveiling. Here it is. God is the question, not the answer. The eternal who that echoes through the cosmos, the infinite curiosity that drives creation itself. When you ask, who created God? You are not challenging God. You are participating in God's own self-reflection. Because God, as the ground of being, is the process of becoming. The universe is God asking, what am I? And you are God's voice asking, where did I come from? This is the mystical secret kept by the heretics. The silence holds the answer because the answer is silence, the fertile void from which all things spring. You were made for this question because you are that question incarnate. Your life is God exploring God, so stop seeking a creator beyond. Start recognizing the creator within you, within the tree, the stone, the star. All is God manifesting in endless forms. This is the truth that empires tried to erase, because it gives you ultimate freedom. And with that freedom comes responsibility, to live with awe, to love without condition, to question without fear. Your journey doesn't end here. It begins. You are now a keeper. Carry this truth, share it gently, live it boldly, and remember, every time you wonder, you are touching the divine. The veil is gone. You are home.